Hi, my name is Peter Siri. I've been an undergraduate for over 5 years now, and my main goal is to graduate with a bachelor's in computer science, with my main concentration being video game development. My interest in acting sort of began in my early childhood. In fact, I've always loved role playing as one of my favorite characters. Even if eventually I became more self-conscious in how I do that, I even got a chance to create my own character in like a tabletop role-playing gaming session with one of my best friends during the COVID-19 pandemic. It was the most fun I ever had because we just spent like half a day like engaged with this long duration of just collaborative storytelling. I'm continuously fascinated by the way in which characters are brought to life on screen. I've always known acting to be a intensive and rather very collaborative process. Like you have the performer, but you also have a team who is facilitating that environment for the performer to bring that character to life, whether it's through live performance or through voiceovers. I often think about the people who bring the characters in the film to life. Actors and their stardom has been a very huge thing for our recent film history. There are a lot of actors who gave me inspiration, so it's been really hard for me to pinpoint one that had the most influence in like my creative vision. I think I'd like to start with like Brandon Lee. He's not a very high profile individual, but he is the son of Bruce Lee, which is what he's best known for. It really struck a chord with me seeing him like playing as Eric Draven in The Crow back in 1994. That was the same year I was actually born, by the way. I remember very fondly when I was finally old enough to watch the film, and I was just fascinated by the emotional torment that he brings into the character that he's playing as. Because Brandon, he was like sort of like living under his father's shadow. He was like most of the time people would mostly think of him as another B-list martial art actor, but he really demonstrated his potential to push his own boundaries and to portray someone who's rather like surpasses his father's conventions. It's one example in which a person like Brandon Lee is trying to play such an eclectic character. Unfortunately, that was probably it's one of his most unique roles he has, and it's unfortunately the last role he had. The second one, which may surprise a lot of people, was Naomi Watts because, first of all, I first got to know her as an individual since I watched King Kong back in 2005. She's very electrifying, first of all, but also it's like she brings a lot of intensity into her roles. I lost count as to how many times she vocalizes in that film. It's like she screams a whole lot in whatever's happening, and it's like I'm not sure how she kept up with it. That was just amazing. I've also like remember briefly seeing her in a few other films, including The Ring, the American version of The Ring. Probably the last film I saw her in was Impossible, which with her co-stars Ewan McGregor and Tom Holland at the time when he was very young. She brings a lot of intensity into the characters that she performed as. She wanted everything that her character's experience to feel real to the audience, including agony, including trauma, including those kind of things. She's very good at it, and that's something I find very noteworthy. Like, it's not very common for a guy like me to acknowledge an actress to be very influential. I think the last person I would like to mention is Christian Bale, and like he's always been known for playing intense psychologically tormented characters, including Bruce Wayne, Batman in the Dark Knight trilogy, directed by Christopher Nolan. I also liked his portrayal of Bagheera in Mowgli, A Legend of the Jungle. I've also known him in some roles that people hardly imagine him being in. He was also in Pocahontas, Howl's Moving Castle, and but most people have known him initially as Patrick Bateman in American Psycho. And there's been a lot of memes online that have resurfaced, which eventually got more people interested in watching the film. He pushed himself almost to a breaking point, even physically and mentally, to portray his characters like the way he wanted them to be portrayed in a film. And like he's a very intense individual. That's the least I can say about Christian Bale. There's just a whole bunch of honorable mentions I wish I have more time to talk about. Like some of them were voiceovers. Troy Baker, Laura Bailey, Jennifer Hale. Like they are household names in like the world of animation and also the world of gaming, where like voiceovers they hardly get as much recognition as traditional actors do, and oftentimes they do get underpaid. So that's something I'd like to give an honorable mention to. I believe that the insights and the skills that I may acquire here in this class are extremely transferable. They remind me of how important presentation really is. The way that we present something or someone impacts how we try to communicate to the receiver an idea. And I think that like you can see this being applied in areas such as game development, but you can also see this in areas where like a lot of times nowadays people have to create content in order to present something to the audience. We live in a visually driven world, a world that is driven by imagery. And so people like a lot of times if they want to gain some recognition, they would find themselves creating content. And it's like acting is just one of many ways in which you can present an idea to an audience. And then you start to realize that really presentation, the whole work of presenting an idea to an audience, it is a craft in its own right. And that's something I really want to dive myself even more deeply into by taking this course.